Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long metal corridors of Nexus Prime. The huge space station floated between the stars, a place where different alien races came to trade and talk. Jake had never seen anything like it before. The walls were made of some strange metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange smells filled the air, some sweet, some sharp, all alien. Behind him walked his team. Dr. Lisa Grant carried her research files in a metal case. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a neat style, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. Sam Rodriguez, their communications officer, checked his translation device one more time. Tony Blake, their security chief, kept his eyes moving, watching for any signs of trouble. His hand stayed close to his weapon, though he hoped he would not need it. They were here for an important meeting. Earth needed allies among the stars. The human race had been exploring space for 50 years, but they were still new compared to the old alien empires. The Zalathi Consortium was one of the most powerful groups in this part of the galaxy. If humans could make a deal with them, it would open doors to new worlds and new technology. Jake had read all the files about the Zalathi. They were actually 4 different alien races that worked together. The Krillix looked like giant insects with hard shells and many arms. The Morvani were like fish that walked on land with wet skin and big eyes. The Zarathi were made of living crystal that grew in strange patterns. The Ithani were the most like humans. They walked on 2 legs and had arms and heads, but they looked like reptiles with scales and cold yellow eyes. The other aliens called humans Deathworlders. This was because Earth was much more dangerous than most planets. Earth had storms that could destroy cities, animals that could kill with one bite, and diseases that could spread across continents. Most alien worlds were calm and safe. Because humans came from such a dangerous place, other species thought they were very strong and violent. Some aliens feared humans, others just thought they were primitive and savage. Jake did not like being called a Deathworlder, but he understood why aliens thought this way. Humans were stronger than most alien species. They could heal faster from injuries. They could survive in places that would kill other beings. But humans were also smart and peaceful. They preferred to solve problems with words rather than weapons. Jake hoped to show the Zalathi that humans could be trusted. The meeting room was enormous. The ceiling went up so high that Jake could barely see it. 4 different sections had been built for the 4 alien races. Each section had the right temperature, air, and lighting for that species. In the center was a round table made of the same glowing metal as the walls. The Zalathi delegates were already waiting. High Counselor Vextar of the Krylix made clicking sounds as he moved his many arms. His insect eyes reflected the light as he watched the humans enter. Ambassador Thulran of the Morvani sat in a tank of water with special breathing equipment that let him talk in air. His skin was a deep blue-green color and felt wet even from across the room. Trade Minister Zeklos of the Zarathi did not sit at all. His crystal body grew up from the floor in geometric patterns. Different colors of light moved through his body as he thought. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music made of breaking glass. But it was Prince Kethmos of the Ithani who drew Jake's attention. The reptilian alien wore rich clothes covered in gold thread. His scales were dark green with patterns of lighter green across his face and arms. He was tall, almost as tall as Jake, and his yellow eyes showed intelligence and pride. Too much pride, Jake thought. "Welcome, humans," said High Counselor Vextar. His voice came through the translation device as a series of clicks and buzzes. "We have heard much about your species. Some of what we have heard makes us curious. Some makes us careful." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly, showing respect without showing weakness. "Thank you for meeting with us. Earth sends its greetings to the Zalathi Consortium. We hope to build a friendship that will help both our peoples." "Friendship," Prince Kethmos said, and his voice sounded amused. "An interesting word from a species known for violence. Tell us, Captain Morrison, how many wars has your species fought?" Lisa stepped up beside Jake. "Many wars, Your Highness, but also many years of peace. Humans have learned that working together brings better results than fighting." Prince Kethmos looked at Lisa with interest. His yellow eyes moved up and down her body in a way that made Jake's muscles tense. "And what does a female Deathworlder think about violence? Do human females fight like the males?" "Human females are just as capable as males," Lisa said calmly, "but we prefer to use our minds to solve problems. That is why I am here as a scientist, not a soldier." The prince's mouth opened slightly, showing sharp teeth. Jake thought it might be a smile, but it did not look friendly. Ambassador Thulran spoke from his water tank. Let us begin with business. We understand that Earth has developed new ways to change planets, ways to make dead worlds suitable for life. Lisa opened her case and took out a small device that projected images in the air above the table. Yes, we call it terraforming. We can change the atmosphere of a planet, create oceans and plant life that will grow and spread. The aliens leaned forward to study the images. Even Prince Kethmos seemed interested, though his eyes kept moving back to Lisa. For the next several hours, they talked about technology, trade routes, and territorial agreements. Jake was pleased with how well the meeting was going. The Zalathi asked good questions and seemed genuinely interested in working with humans. Only Prince Kethmos seemed more focused on studying the humans than listening to their proposals. As the day ended, High Counselor Vextar announced that they would continue the talks tomorrow. Tonight you will be our guests for dinner. It will give us a chance to know each other better. Jake thanked them and led his team out of the meeting room. As they walked back to their quarters, Tony Blake moved closer to Jake. Captain, Tony said quietly, that prince was watching Dr. Grant too much. I don't like the way he looks at her. I noticed, Jake said. Keep an eye on him during dinner. But remember, we need this alliance. Don't do anything unless you have to. Lisa heard them talking. I can handle myself, she said. But thank you for watching out for me. Jake looked at her and felt the familiar protective feeling that came when someone he cared about might be in danger. Lisa was not just his teammate. She was the woman he loved. If Prince Kethmos tried to hurt her, alliance or no alliance, there would be trouble. The next 3 days of meetings went better than Jake had hoped. The Zalathi Consortium seemed genuinely interested in working with Earth. Trade Minister Zeklos was especially excited about human mining technology. His crystal body glowed brighter when he talked about the metals humans could extract from dangerous asteroids that other species could not reach. Ambassador Thulran wanted to know about Earth's oceans. The Morvani came from a water world, and he was fascinated by how humans had learned to live both on land and in the sea. He asked many questions about human ships and underwater cities. Even High Counselor Vextar showed interest. The Kraliks were builders, and he admired human architecture. He was amazed that humans could construct buildings that survived earthquakes and hurricanes. On his world, such disasters were unknown, but Prince Kethmos remained difficult. During each meeting, he asked questions that seemed designed to make humans look bad. He wanted to know about human weapons, about wars, about crime rates on Earth colonies. When Lisa explained how humans had learned to control their violent impulses through law and culture, the prince just laughed. Culture, he said, his forked tongue flicking out between his sharp teeth. How can a species that evolved to kill everything around it claim to have culture? Jake kept his voice calm. The same way any intelligent species learns to grow beyond its origins. We assume the Ythani were not always the civilized people they are today. The prince's yellow eyes narrowed. The Ythani have always been superior. We did not need to learn civilization. We were born with it, Lisa leaned forward. That's interesting. Our studies of Ythani history show evidence of tribal warfare dating back thousands of years. It seems your species went through the same development as most others. Prince Kethmos stood up so quickly that his chair fell over. For a moment, Jake thought the alien might attack Lisa. Then the prince sat back down, but his eyes stayed fixed on her with something that looked like anger mixed with fascination. Human females, he said slowly, seem very bold. Human females are the equals of human males, Jake said firmly. Dr. Grant is one of our finest scientists. Yes, the prince said, his voice becoming softer. I can see that she is very fine. The way he said it made Jake's hands clench into fists under the table. Tony Blake shifted in his seat, ready to move if needed. But High Counselor Vextar quickly changed the subject back to business. After the meeting ended, Ambassador Thulran approached Jake privately. Captain Morrison, I hope you will forgive Prince Kethmos. He is young for a royal, and sometimes his manners are not what they should be. I understand, Jake said, though he did not really understand at all. We all want these talks to succeed. Good. Tonight's dinner will be more relaxed. Perhaps the prince will behave better in a social setting. Jake doubted that, but he nodded politely. The dining hall was even larger than the meeting room. Tables were set up for each species, with the right kind of food and atmosphere. A central area had been prepared with food that all species could eat. Though Jake was not sure he wanted to try some of the strange dishes he saw, Prince Kethmos arrived wearing even more elaborate clothes than before. Gold jewelry hung around his neck and arms. He moved through the room like he owned it, speaking loudly and laughing at his own jokes. Jake noticed that the prince carried a flask of some kind of liquid that he drank from regularly. Fermented fish extract, Sam Rodriguez whispered, checking his translation device. It's an alcoholic drink popular among the Ythani nobility. Jake watched as the prince drank more and more from his flask. With each drink, Prince Kethmos became louder and more aggressive. He began making comments about the other alien species that bordered on insults. He criticized the Krylix for being worker insects and called the Morvani primitive fish people. But most of his attention focused on Lisa. He kept walking past her table, making comments about human appearance and behavior. He asked her questions about human biology that were clearly inappropriate. Lisa answered with professional calm, but Jake could see that she was becoming uncomfortable. "Your hair is very unusual," the prince said, reaching out as if to touch Lisa's blonde hair. She moved away before he could make contact. "Thank you," Lisa said politely. "Human hair comes in many colors and styles, and your skin is so smooth. Not like our scales. I wonder if it feels as soft as it looks." Jake stood up. "Your Highness, perhaps we could discuss the technical aspects of the terraforming process. I'm sure you have questions about the science involved." Prince Kethmos turned to look at Jake. His yellow eyes were slightly unfocused from the alcohol. "I am more interested in human biology than human technology, Captain. Specifically female human biology." Tony Blake made a small motion with his hand, asking Jake if he should intervene. Jake shook his head slightly. They could not afford to cause a diplomatic incident. "Not yet, perhaps," said High Counselor Vextar, who had been watching with obvious concern. "We should focus on the cultural exchange aspects of our potential partnership." "Yes," Prince Kethmos said, swaying slightly. "Cultural exchange. I would very much like to exchange cultures with the human female. Perhaps we could study compatibility between our species." Lisa's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. "Scientific collaboration is indeed important. I would be happy to share our research data with Ythani scientists." "That is not the kind of collaboration I had in mind," the prince said, and his forked tongue flicked out again. The other alien delegates were clearly uncomfortable. Ambassador Thulran made gurgling sounds in his water tank that Jake's translator could not interpret, but they sounded distressed. Trade Minister Zeklos's crystal body flickered with rapid color changes that suggested anxiety. Jake felt his protective instincts rising. Lisa was handling the situation well, but the prince was clearly getting worse as he drank more. The aliens' royal guard stood nearby, but instead of controlling their prince's behavior, they seemed to be encouraging him with gestures and sounds that Jake's translator marked as laughter. The situation reached a breaking point when Prince Kethmos announced that he wanted to study human breeding habits and asked Lisa if she would be willing to participate in a biological experiment. Lisa stood up, her scientific calm finally cracking. "Your Highness, I think there has been a misunderstanding about the nature of our diplomatic mission." "No misunderstanding," the prince said, moving closer to her. "I know exactly what I want to study." Jake stepped between them. "I think it's time for my team to return to our quarters. We have early meetings tomorrow." Prince Kethmos laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "The Deathworlder male thinks he can protect his female. How primitive. Does he not understand that I am royalty? That I take what I want?" "I understand that you've had too much to drink," Jake said quietly. "And I suggest you step away from Dr. Grant." "Or what?" the prince asked, his voice full of mockery. "What will the savage Deathworlder do? We are not on your violent world now. Here you must follow civilized rules." Jake's voice became very quiet and very calm. "Your Highness, I am asking you politely to leave Dr. Grant alone. Please do not make me ask again." Prince Kethmos smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "And I am telling you that I will do whatever I please with your female. After all, what could a primitive species like yours do to stop me?" He reached past Jake toward Lisa, his scaled hand moving toward her arm. Jake tensed, ready to act, but hoping the prince would reconsider. The alien guards moved closer, their hands on their weapons, waiting to see what their prince would do. The dining hall grew very quiet. Even the background noise of alien conversation stopped as everyone sensed that something important was about to happen. Prince Kethmos reached past Jake with his scaled hand extended toward Lisa. His yellow eyes were glazed with alcohol and arrogance. He seemed to think that his royal status would protect him from any consequences. "Step away from her," Jake said one final time. His voice was barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried clearly through the silent dining hall. The prince laughed. "What will you do, Deathworlder? Strike a prince? Start a war between our species? I think not." His hand moved closer to Lisa's arm. "Your female will learn proper respect for Yathani royalty." Jake's body went completely still. Lisa had seen him like this only once before, during a pirate attack on a research station. She knew what was coming and took a quick step backward. "You were warned," Jake said. Prince Kethmos' hand touched Lisa's shoulder. His fingers began to squeeze, and Lisa winced in pain. "See?" The prince said to Jake. "Your female belongs to me now." What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but every alien in the dining hall would remember it for the rest of their lives. Jake moved with speed that seemed impossible to the watching aliens. His left hand grabbed Prince Kethmos' wrist while his right hand shot forward in a precise strike to the prince's extended elbow. The combination of pulling and striking created forces that the alien's arm was never designed to handle. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the dining hall like a gunshot. Prince Kethmos screamed as his elbow joint bent backward in a direction that no elbow should ever bend. Jake maintained his grip on the prince's wrist and used the alien's own momentum to spin him around. Then Jake struck again, this time at the prince's shoulder joint. The second crack was even louder than the first. Prince Kethmos' shoulder separated completely, leaving his arm hanging at an impossible angle. The prince fell to his knees, clutching his ruined arm and screaming in pain and shock. The entire sequence of movements was so fast that most of the aliens could not follow what had happened. One moment Prince Kethmos was reaching for Lisa, and the next moment he was on the floor with his arm destroyed. Jake stood over the fallen prince, breathing normally, showing no signs of effort or stress. To him, disabling the alien had required no more energy than swatting a fly. But to the aliens watching, it was like seeing a predator in action. "You should have listened," Jake said quietly. The prince's royal guards finally reacted, drawing their energy weapons and pointing them at Jake. But they hesitated when they saw how calmly Jake stood there, as if armed guards posed no threat at all. Tony Blake and Sam Rodriguez moved smoothly into defensive positions, their own weapons appearing in their hands with practiced ease. Lisa stepped back but remained calm, already analyzing the prince's injuries with her scientific mind. "Stand down," High Counselor Vextar clicked loudly, his many arms waving in agitation. "Everyone put away your weapons." Ambassador Tulran rose partly out of his water tank, his large eyes wide with shock. "What have you done?" he gurgled. "I protected my teammate from assault," Jake said simply. Prince Kethmos was warned repeatedly to keep his hands to himself. Trade Minister Zeklos's crystal body flashed with rapid color changes as he processed what he had witnessed. "The speed," he said in his musical voice. "I have never seen any being move so fast." Prince Kethmos continued to scream and writhe on the floor. His arm hung completely limp, and bone fragments showed through tears in his scaled skin. The injury was clearly severe, but Jake had been precise. There was no major bleeding, no damage to vital organs. The prince would live, but he would need immediate medical attention. "You have destroyed his arm," one of the royal guards said, his weapon still trained on Jake. "No," Lisa said, stepping forward with the clinical calm that marked her as a scientist. "Captain Morrison dislocated the shoulder and fractured the elbow joint. The injuries are serious but repairable with proper medical care." She knelt beside the moaning prince, ignoring the weapons pointed at her. "The shoulder joint has been completely separated from the socket. The elbow has a compound fracture of the ulna and radius bones. With Ithani medical technology, he should recover full use of the arm in 6 to 8 weeks. The alien stared at her in amazement. She had just watched her boyfriend destroy a prince's arm, and now she was calmly describing the injuries as if she were giving a medical lecture. High Counselor Vextar clicked rapidly, calling for medical assistance. Within moments, alien medical technicians rushed into the dining hall with floating stretchers and scanning equipment. As they worked to stabilize Prince Kethmos, Ambassador Thulran approached Jake. "Captain Morrison, you realize what you have done? You have attacked royalty, This could mean war between our species. Jake looked at him steadily. Ambassador, I defended my team member from sexual assault. Prince Kethmos was warned multiple times to stop his inappropriate behavior. He chose to ignore those warnings. But surely there were other ways to handle the situation, Thulran said. Were there? Jake asked. Your prince ignored diplomatic protocol, ignored social boundaries, and ignored direct warnings. He believed his royal status gave him the right to assault a member of my team. I corrected that belief. Trade Minister Zeklos moved closer, his crystal form glowing with fascination. The precision of your attack was remarkable. You disabled him completely without causing life-threatening damage. This suggests incredible control. Humans learn control, Jake said. We have to. Our strength can be dangerous if not properly directed. High Counselor Vextar finished directing the medical team and approached the group. Prince Kethmos will survive, but his pride is more damaged than his arm. He has never been defeated in combat before. This wasn't combat, Jake said. This was discipline. The medical team loaded the prince onto a stretcher. As they carried him away, he managed to raise his head and look at Jake with hatred in his yellow eyes. You will pay for this, Deathworlder, he hissed through his pain. My father will demand your head for this insult. Jake met his gaze calmly. Your Highness, if you had kept your hands to yourself, none of this would have happened. Remember that when your arm heals. As the medical team disappeared through the dining hall doors, the remaining aliens stood in stunned silence. They had heard stories about Deathworlder capabilities, but seeing them demonstrated so precisely and devastatingly was different from hearing tales. Captain Morrison, High Counselor Vexitar said slowly, I think we need to discuss what happens next. Jake nodded. I agree. But first, let me make something clear to all of you. Humans prefer peace. We prefer negotiation. We prefer civilized behavior. But if you threaten our people, especially our women, you will discover why other species call us Deathworlders. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each alien delegate. We came here seeking friendship and alliance. That offer still stands, but it stands on the basis of mutual respect. Prince Kethmos forgot about respect. I reminded him. Lisa moved to Jake's side, her hand briefly touching his arm in a gesture of support. The human capacity for violence exists, she said in her calm, scientific voice. But so does our capacity for mercy. Prince Kethmos is alive and will recover fully. On our world, touching a woman without permission often results in far worse consequences. The aliens looked at each other, beginning to understand that they had seriously misjudged these Deathworlders. They had seen humans as either primitive savages or weaklings pretending to be civilized. Now they realized that humans might be something far more dangerous, warriors who chose to be peaceful, but who would become terrible when that peace was threatened. The medical bay of Nexus Prime buzzed with activity as alien doctors worked on Prince Kethmos. Jake and his team waited in a secure conference room, while the Zelathi Consortium delegates decided what to do. Tony Blake stood guard at the door while Sam Rodriguez monitored communications channels for any signs of incoming Ythani warships. Lisa sat at the metal table making notes in her personal datapad. She seemed completely calm, as if breaking a prince's arm was just another day at the office. Jake found her composure both admirable and slightly unsettling. How are you holding up? He asked, sitting beside her. I'm fine, she said without looking up from her notes, though I'm curious about the biomechanics of what you did to his arm. The leverage required to generate that much force in such a small space is fascinating from a physics standpoint. Jake stared at her. Lisa, I just crippled an alien prince. Our diplomatic mission might be ruined. We could be starting a war. And you're taking scientific notes? She looked up at him with her clear blue eyes. Jake, worrying won't change what happened, but understanding the incident might help us deal with the consequences. Besides, she smiled slightly, I'm proud of you for protecting me. Before Jake could respond, the conference room door opened. High Counselor Vextar entered, followed by Ambassador Thulran and Trade Minister Zeklos. All three aliens looked serious but not angry. Captain Morrison, Vextar began, his insect-like voice clicking through the translator. We have reviewed the recordings of tonight's incident. Jake tensed. He had not realized they were being recorded. And? The recordings show clearly that Prince Kethmos initiated physical contact, despite your repeated warnings, Ambassador Thulran said from his portable water tank. Under consortium law, this constitutes assault, Trade Minister Zeklos's crystal form flickered with colors that the translator identified as thoughtful consideration. More importantly, the recordings show remarkable restraint on your part. You could have killed the prince easily, but you chose to disable him instead. Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. We didn't come here to hurt anyone, but I won't let anyone assault my team. Which brings us to a difficult situation, Vextar said. Prince Kethmos is demanding your arrest for attacking royalty. His father, King Vorthon, has been contacted and is sending ships to collect his son. And? Jake asked. And we told them both that the prince was in the wrong, Ambassador Thulran said firmly. Prince Kethmos broke our laws and your laws. His royal status does not give him the right to assault diplomatic guests. Lisa looked up from her notes. What was the king's response? Zeklos's colors shifted to what the translator marked as amusement. King Vorthon said, and I quote, "Perhaps someone finally taught my arrogant son a lesson he needed to learn." Jake blinked in surprise. The king isn't angry? Oh, he is angry, Vextar clicked. But not at you. He is angry at his son for embarrassing the Ythani royal family and damaging relations with a potential ally. Apparently, this is not the first time Prince Kethmos has caused diplomatic problems. Ambassador Thulran made gurgling sounds that might have been laughter. The king asked for details about how you defeated his son so easily. When we told him, he became very interested in human capabilities. Interested how? Tony Blake asked from his position by the door. Interested in the military applications, Zeklos said, his crystal form brightening. King Vorthon leads the consortium's military forces. He's always been curious about Deathworlder combat abilities. Lisa frowned. We're not here to be soldiers for hire. No, Vextar agreed, but you are here to build alliances. And King Vorthon now sees humans as valuable potential allies rather than primitive savages. Jake tried to process this information. So the king isn't demanding my arrest? Quite the opposite, Ambassador Thulran said. He is demanding that his son apologize to you and Dr. Grant publicly. That seems unnecessary, Jake said. We don't need public humiliation. It is not about humiliation, Zeklos explained, his colors shifting to serious patterns. It is about honor. Prince Kethmos dishonored himself and his family. He must make amends or he cannot return to Ythani space. The door opened again and Prince Kethmos entered. His arm was encased in a sophisticated medical device that held the damaged bones in perfect alignment, while alien nanomedicine worked to repair the damage. He looked pale and shaken, but he walked steadily. Behind him came two figures Jake had not seen before. One was clearly Ythani, but older and more heavily built than the prince. His scales were darker, almost black, and covered with ritual scars that marked him as a veteran warrior. This had to be King Vorthon. The other figure was something Jake had never encountered. It looked vaguely humanoid, but its skin seemed to be made of flowing liquid metal. When it moved, patterns of light ran across its surface like electrical currents. Jake's translator identified it as a Nexari, one of the neutral species that managed Nexus Prime. Captain Morrison, the king said, his voice deeper and more controlled than his son's. I am King Vorthon of the Ythani. I have come to apologize for my son's behavior. Prince Kethmos stepped forward, his yellow eyes fixed on the floor. Captain Morrison, Dr. Grant, I offer my formal apology for my inappropriate actions. I dishonored myself, my family, and my species. I ask your forgiveness. The prince's voice sounded hollow, completely different from the arrogant tone he had used before. Jake realized that having his arm broken had been less damaging to the prince than having his pride destroyed in front of witnesses. Apology accepted, Jake said simply. Lisa nodded. Your Highness, I hope you recover quickly from your injuries. King Vorthon studied Jake with intelligent yellow eyes. My son tells me you moved faster than he could follow. He says you struck with precision that suggests extensive combat training. All humans receive basic defensive training, Jake said carefully. Basic training, the king repeated. Interesting. What would advanced training produce? Before Jake could answer, the Nexari spoke. Its voice sounded like music played on metal instruments. I am Administrator Fluxon of Nexus Prime. I have been monitoring this situation with great interest. Why? Lisa asked. Because this incident reveals important information about human capabilities that could affect the balance of power in this sector, Fluxon explained. Species throughout the galaxy will want to know how easily a trained human can disable other beings. King Vorthon nodded. Which is why I propose we turn this incident into an opportunity. The consortium has been seeking allies for expansion into the dangerous systems of the Outer Rim. Systems where Deathworlder abilities would be invaluable. High Counselor Vexitar's many arms moved in patterns of agreement. The Outer Rim contains worlds with valuable resources, but also hostile environments and aggressive native species. Most consortium members cannot survive there, but humans could, Ambassador Thulron added. Your people are already adapted to dangerous conditions. Trade Minister Zeklos's crystal form flashed with excitement. We could offer you exclusive mining rights to entire systems in exchange for establishing human settlements that could serve as supply bases for consortium operations. Jake looked at his team. This was far beyond what they had hoped to achieve. They had come seeking a simple trade agreement, but now the aliens were offering them entire star systems. We would need to discuss this with Earth government, Jake said. Of course, King Vorthan agreed. But consider this. My son learned tonight that royal status means nothing against superior ability. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to learn the same lesson about human capabilities. Prince Kethmos winced, but he nodded. Father is right. I underestimated humans completely. I thought Deathworlders were just violent primitives. Now I understand that they are something far more dangerous. What's that? Lisa asked. The prince met her eyes for the first time since his apology. Warriors who choose peace but who never forget how to fight. 3 days later, the final treaty signing took place in the same meeting room where everything had started. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Instead of cautious curiosity, the alien delegates showed genuine respect and even admiration for the human team. Prince Kethmos sat quietly in his chair, his injured arm still encased in the healing device. He had not spoken much since his public apology, but when he did speak, his tone was respectful and thoughtful. The arrogance had been completely drained out of him. King Vorthan had remained on Nexus Prime to personally oversee the final negotiations. His presence had transformed the talks from a simple trade discussion into a major strategic alliance. Other alien species had sent observers, all wanting to understand what made humans so valuable to the powerful Zelathi Consortium. Jake sat at the table with Lisa beside him, reviewing the final treaty documents. The terms were far better than anything Earth had dared to hope for. The consortium was offering not just trade agreements, but also territorial partnerships, technology sharing, and military cooperation. The Outer Rim territories, High Counselor Vextar explained, gesturing with several arms at a holographic star map, contain 17 systems with habitable planets. Most have valuable mineral deposits, but the environmental conditions are too dangerous for our species. Ambassador Thulron added from his water tank. The gravity is too high for Morvani, the radiation too intense for Krillix, the temperature variations too extreme for Zerathi, and the atmospheric conditions too toxic for Ethani. But perfect for humans, Trade Minister Zeklos said, his crystal form glowing with excitement. Your species could establish colonies there and serve as our partners in resource extraction. Lisa studied the star charts with professional interest. The mineral surveys show deposits of rare earth elements that are essential for advanced technology. These systems could supply the entire consortium for centuries. And in return, King Vorthan said, humans would have exclusive colonization rights to 17 star systems. Your species would go from having a handful of colonies to having an entire sector of space. Jake felt the weight of the opportunity. This alliance could transform humanity's position in the galaxy. Instead of being newcomers begging for acceptance, humans would become major players with their own territory and resources. There is one other benefit, King Vorthan continued. Word of this incident has spread throughout the station. Other species are beginning to understand that humans are not just violent primitives, but thinking warriors who prefer diplomacy but can fight when necessary. Administrator Fluxen materialized beside the table, his liquid metal form shifting patterns of light. Captain Morrison, I have received communication, requests from 12 different species who want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Your demonstration of controlled force has earned respect throughout this sector. Prince, Kethmos finally spoke up. May I say something? His father nodded, and the prince turned to Jake and Lisa. Before I met you, I believed that strength and intelligence were opposite things. I thought beings were either smart and weak or strong and stupid. You taught me that humans are both intelligent and powerful, which makes you more dangerous than either trait alone. He paused, touching his healing arm. But you also showed mercy. You could have killed me easily, but you chose not to. This combination of deadly capability and moral restraint is something I had never encountered before. Lisa leaned forward. Prince Kethmos, humans learned long ago that true strength comes from choosing when not to use violence, not from using it carelessly. I understand that now, the prince said. I hope someday I can earn your forgiveness and perhaps even your friendship. Jake nodded. Your Highness, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is learning from them. High Counselor Vextar clicked approvingly. This incident has taught all of us valuable lessons about human nature. You are neither the savage killers some species feared, nor the weak diplomats others assumed. You are something new in our galaxy. What's that? Sam Rodriguez asked. Trade Minister Zeklos answered with colors that translated as deep respect. Peaceful warriors, beings who choose cooperation over conquest, but who can protect what they value when necessary. King Vorthan stood and activated the treaty display. This alliance will benefit both our peoples. The consortium gains access to worlds we could never colonize, and humanity gains status as a major galactic power. Jake read through the final terms one more time. Earth would establish colonies in the outer rim systems, with full territorial control. The consortium would provide advanced technology, military support if needed, and exclusive trading partnerships. In return, humans would serve as the consortium's partners in developing the dangerous frontier regions. Captain Morrison, Administrator Fluxon said, This treaty will need to be ratified by your Earth government. How long will that take? Probably 6 months, Jake said. Our government will want to review everything carefully. Understandable, King Vorthan agreed. But while we wait for official ratification, perhaps you would be willing to accompany a consortium survey mission to one of the outer rim systems. We would like human input on which worlds would be most suitable for colonization. Lisa's eyes lit up with scientific excitement. A survey mission? We could study completely new ecosystems, analyze mineral deposits, evaluate terraforming potential. Jake smiled at her enthusiasm. I think Dr. Grant would like that very much. And you, Captain? King Vorthan asked. Would you be willing to work with us while this treaty is being processed? Jake looked around the room at the alien delegates who had become allies, at the prince who had learned respect the hard way, and at Lisa whose excitement about new discoveries never faded. Your Majesty, it would be our honor. The treaty signing took only a few minutes, but Jake knew it would change everything. As each delegate pressed their appendage or limb to the signing pad, he thought about how quickly things had changed. A week ago, humans were unknown newcomers. Now they were respected partners with their own territory. After the ceremony, Prince Kethmos approached Jake privately. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course. When you grabbed my arm that night, you could have killed me instantly, couldn't you? Jake considered lying, but decided the prince deserved honesty. Yes, why didn't you? Because killing you wouldn't have solved the problem. It would have created bigger ones. You needed to learn respect, not die. The prince nodded slowly. My father says that wisdom combined with strength is the most dangerous combination in the galaxy. I think he is right. As Jake's team prepared to leave Nexus Prime for the survey mission, word of their alliance spread throughout the station. Other alien species watched them with new interest and respect. The humans were no longer curiosities or primitives. They were deathworlders who had chosen diplomacy over domination, but who could fight when their principles were threatened. Lisa walked beside Jake through the corridors that had seemed so strange a week ago. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. What do you mean? Using violence to solve a diplomatic problem. Couldn't we have found another way? Jake considered her question seriously. Lisa, I gave Prince Kethmos every chance to stop. I warned him repeatedly. He chose to ignore those warnings because he thought his royal status made him untouchable. And now he knows that no one is untouchable. Sometimes that's a lesson that can only be taught one way. Lisa nodded. The aliens seem to respect us more after seeing what you did. They respect us because we showed restraint along with capability. Any species can be violent, but choosing when not to be violent, that takes wisdom. As their ship prepared to depart for the outer rim, Jake received a final communication from Administrator Fluxon. Captain Morrison, I wanted you to know that this incident has become legendary throughout the station. Beings are already telling stories about the human who broke a prince's arm and then helped heal it. What kind of stories? Jake asked. Stories about deathworlders who are more dangerous when they're being peaceful than when they're being violent. Stories about warriors who choose diplomacy, but never forget how to fight. Stories about humans who touched the stars and made them better. Jake smiled. Administrator, we're just trying to make friends and explore the galaxy. Captain, that may be what you're trying to do. But what you're actually doing is showing the galaxy what it means to be truly civilized. Strength without wisdom is brutality. Wisdom without strength is helplessness. Humans seem to have found the balance between them. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, heading for unknown worlds and new adventures, Jake reflected on how much had changed. They had come to Nexus Prime as diplomatic newcomers. They were leaving as respected allies with an entire sector of space to call their own. And it all started because someone made the mistake of touching a Deathworlder's girl. The story would spread throughout the galaxy, told and retold wherever beings gathered to trade and talk. It would become a legend about respect, restraint, and the consequences of underestimating those who choose peace but remember how to fight. But for Jake and Lisa, it was just the beginning of their adventures among the stars.